There's a great comfort in that, knowing that someone loves you exactly for who you are. Dolly Parton just broke down in front of millions, live on Air the Country. Music legend known for her unshakable spirit, an endless charm, was caught completely off guard, and in that moment, the world saw a side of her. They never expected right in front of millions. Dolly lost. Yet the unshakable, unstoppable icon was completely blindsided. And what happened next left fans in absolute shock was it a devastating personal loss, a painful truth. She could no longer hold back, or did something happen behind the scenes that changed everything? Stick around, because once you hear what brought America's sweetheart to tears, you'll understand why the entire world is still talking about it. When you hear the name, Dolly Parton, what comes to mind? The big blonde hair, the rhinestone-studded outfits, that unmistakable voice that's been the soundtrack to generations. Or maybe it's her quick wit, her larger-than-life personality, and that heart of pure gold for decades. Dolly Parton has been more than just a country music legend. She's been a cultural icon, a trailblazer, and a woman who has built an empire with nothing but talent, charm, and sheer determination she's given the world. Unforgettable songs starred in blockbuster movies, built an entire theme park, which is super iconic, by the way, and given away millions to those in need. But there's one thing about Dolly that has never changed. She's always been strong, no matter what. Life throws at her, she faces it with a smile. A joke and an attitude that says, bless your heart. And that's exactly why the moment she broke down in tears on live television left. Everyone completely shocked. Dolly doesn't cry in public? Definitely not. Of course she's been through pain, heartbreak, and some heartbreaking tragedies. But she's always found a way to turn her struggles into strength. So when she lost it, right there in front of everyone, it was so clear that whatever had happened was deeply personal, deeply emotional, and completely overwhelming. But before we get into that moment, let's take a step back, because to truly understand why this moment was such a big deal, you have to understand who Dolly Parton is, where she came from, and why she has never, ever let the world see her break down like this. Before Dolly's journey to the top, Dolly wasn't born into fame and fortune, far from it. She grew up dirt poor in a tiny cabin in the mountains of Tennessee, one of 12 children in a family that barely had enough to eat. She's always joked about how poor they were, saying they couldn't even afford running water, but they had plenty of running noses. She once said, we always made jokes, and said we didn't even know we were poor, till some smart aleck told us. We didn't have any money, but we were rich in things that money doesn't buy, like love and kindness, and understanding her family didn't have much, but they had music, and from the time she was just a little girl, Dolly knew she was destined for something bigger. She started singing in church, writing songs on a little guitar her uncle gave her, and dreaming of a life beyond the Smoky Mountains. And when she eventually got the chance, you better believe she grabbed it with both hands. At just 13 years, old Dolly performed at the Grand Ole Opry, standing on that legendary stage, soaking in the applause, and knowing deep in her bones that this was just the beginning, and she was right. At that same performance, she met the legendary Johnny Cash for the first time, and he encouraged her to follow her own instincts regarding her career, and she did just that. She moved to Nashville, ready to take on the world, and it didn't take long before everyone knew her name. At first, she was known as the pretty blonde sidekick to country star Porter Wagoner, but Dolly was never meant to be just anyone's sidekick. She eventually broke out on her own, and once she did, there was no stopping her hit after hit. Jolene, I Will Always Love You, 9 to 5. Her songs weren't just catchy, they told stories. Real, raw, emotional stories that people could genuinely connect with. And she wasn't limited to just country music. Dolly became a Hollywood star, lighting up the big screen in iconic movies like 9 to 5 and Steel Magnolias. She went on to build an empire open Dollywood and turn herself into one of the most powerful women in entertainment, all while never losing the charm, kindness, and quick wit that made people fall in love with her in the first place. But here's what makes Dolly different from so many other celebrities. Even when she got to the top of the entertainment industry, she never forgot where she came from, and she never let fame change her heart. Even after becoming one of the biggest stars in the world, she still talks. Like she just walked off the front porch of her Tennessee cabin. Still makes fun of herself. Still calls people honey and darling. And she definitely still gives more than she takes. Dolly has poured millions into helping children learn to read, funding, medical research, and supporting the communities that raised her. And she's not the type to just throw money at a cause she actually gets involved. She's helped build hospitals, rebuild homes, and even helped fund a COVID vaccine. And through it all, she's always kept that same Dolly energy. Funny, flirty, and fearless. She has faced plenty of personal struggles, but she never lets the world see her sweat. She smiles through the pain, lifts others up, even when she's hurting, and never, ever lets life bring her down. That's why the moment she broke down in tears on live television hit so hard everyone could tell that something truly powerful was happening. And when you hear the reason behind her tears, you'll understand why the entire world is still talking about it. A heartbreaking loss. Well, Dolly Parton just faced the most devastating loss of her life. Her beloved husband of nearly 60 years. Carl Dean passed away, and she's completely shattered. Let's be real. Celebrity marriages rarely last. Hollywood couples barely make it past 5 years, sometimes let alone 6 decades. But Dolly and Carl, they were completely different. It all started back in 1964, when 18-year-old Dolly had just moved to Nashville, wide-eyed and ready to take on the world. But then fate had more than just Hollywood fame in store for her. She was standing outside a laundromat when Carl Dean, WHO, was 21 years old. At the time, drove by in his white Chevy pickup. Carl called out to her saying, "You're going to get sunburned out here, little lady." And that was, it sparks flew. Instantly, Dolly later revealed that she didn't hop right into his car, immediately due to safety. Reasons, of course, but she did invite him to visit her. Her aunt and uncle's house the next day, and he did just that. Although she only sat with him outside, Dean came back to see her every day for a week, and when he eventually took her out for their first date, he drove her to his parents' house. First because, according to Dolly, Dean said he knew right from the minute he saw her that she was the one he wanted. Carl genuinely loved Dolly. He didn't care that she was a wannabe star. He wasn't interested in the glitz and glam of Hollywood. He was interested in her. And that's exactly what swept her off her feet. 2 years later, they tied the knot in a tiny private ceremony with just her mom as a witness. And from that moment on, Carl made one thing clear. He wanted absolutely nothing to do with fame. While Dolly became a global superstar, Carl stayed completely out of the spotlight, running his paving business and living a quiet, simple life. As a matter of fact, when Dolly brought him to one of the biggest industry events, an awards banquet, in 1966, where she was being honored for writing, "Put it off until tomorrow," Carl was clearly uncomfortable. Dolly later revealed that before they even got to the car, he had begun taking off his tuxedo, and he said to her, "I'm happy for you. I want you to do what you want to do." But don't ever ask me to go to another one of these things, because I'm not going. But don't get it twisted. This didn't mean he wasn't supportive of her career. In fact, he adored Dolly and her career. However, he just preferred to love her. From the sidelines and enjoy their privacy. She once said we just enjoy each other. One of the things that we like to do. Not necessarily a date night. We have a lot of date days as we have our little recreational vehicle, and we like to travel around. We like going down to get some food. Or I'll make a picnic, and we'll go down to the river. Even though Carl was never in the spotlight, he had his sweet, sneaky ways of showing his love for Dolly. Apparently he loved Dollywood so much that he'd sneak into the park, buy his own ticket, and blend in with the crowd. Yep, he didn't want to be treated any differently just because he was Dolly Parton's husband. Now that's a man who knows how to keep it real and stay humble. So while Dolly was out there shaking up the world, Carl was her quiet rock. Always there behind the scenes, never craving the spotlight. Dolly would often gush about how their personalities balanced each other. She was the star. He was the grounded private man keeping everything. Together, however, unfortunately, behind the scenes, things eventually took a heartbreaking turn. Carl began struggling with Alzheimer's disease, a cruel illness that slowly stole his memories and his ability to recognize the woman he had loved for decades. Imagine being married to someone for 60 years, and one day they don't even know who you are. That's the reality Dolly faced. And even though she never let the world see her, pain insiders say watching Carl fade away was absolutely devastating for her. And then on March 3rd, 2025, Carl Dean took his final breath, leaving Dolly completely crushed in a post shared on her ex account. Dolly said Carl and I spent many wonderful years. Together, words can't do justice to the love we shared for over 60 years. Thank you for your prayers and sympathy. He is in God's arms. Now, and I am okay with that. As soon as the news of Carl's passing broke, the love started pouring in. Reba McEntire, Carrie, Underwood, Blake Shelton, and even Oprah all sent their condolences, calling Carl and Dolly's love story one of the greatest of all time. The grand old Opry even did a tribute performance of I Will Always Love You in Carl's honor, which had the entire audience in tears. Because, let's be real, this wasn't just any Hollywood marriage. This was real. Rare once-in-a-lifetime love. But here's the moment that shocked the world. Although we all know Dolly is the woman who lights up a room with her beautiful smile, just recently, she let us in on something we didn't expect at all, and it's the fact that she's been hurting so much. Dolly has been through a lot in her life. She's lost family members. She's been through heartbreak. She's faced scandals. But through it all, she never let the world see her break. Well, until now. At Dollywood season opening, Dolly surprised her fans when she took the stage. Despite the huge loss she just suffered within seconds. It was clear she wasn't herself. Her voice shook, her eyes filled with tears. And then she said, I need to laugh. I need some fun, so I'm probably going to be stupid. I've been crying enough the last week or two. She went on to talk about how much she missed him so much, saying I've been with him 60 years, so I'm going to have to relearn some of the things that we've done, but I'll always keep him close. Fans in the audience were stunned to see Dolly Parton so emotional in public. This was not something anyone had ever seen before, but it didn't stop there in several other interviews after Carl's passing. Dolly let the world in on her heartbreak, saying it's a hole in my heart, but we'll fill that up with good stuff, and he'll always be with me. And her revelation was completely heartbreaking. If there's one song that will forever define Dolly's and Carl's love story, It's I Will Always Love You. Although this song wasn't originally written about Carl, Dolly actually wrote it about leaving her longtime business partner, Porter Wagoner, but over the years fans have come to connect it to Carl, and now so does Dolly. And so after his passing, she dedicated the song to him. And let's just say there wasn't a dry eye in sight. Well, as Dolly continues to navigate life without Carl, she's leaning into the love they shared. And honestly, if anyone can turn this pain into something beautiful, it's Dolly. Her strength, her honesty, and her unwavering love for Carl are all the inspiration we need. But believe it or not, Dolly Parton has also made someone cry on live television, and it's none other than Stephen Colbert, the iconic host of The Late Show with Stephen Colbert. And if you didn't see it, you missed one of the most raw and emotional moments to ever happen on The Late Show. We're used to seeing Dolly as the shiny, happy, bubbly star who never misses a beat. But this moment was real and deeply personal, not just for Colbert, but for Dolly as well. So what caused the tears? Well, it wasn't a funny joke or a silly story. It was Dolly's emotions pouring out, and it had everything to do with the loss of the one person who meant so much to her, remembering the loss of her mom. It was October 2020 when Dolly appeared on The Late Show, and during their usual banter, Stephen asked her about her mother's influence on her music. The question seemed pretty normal, but what happened next was anything but normal. Dolly, with her usual warmth and grace, spoke about her mom, Avie Lee, and the massive impact she had on not just her career, but on her life. Dolly was asked about the 3 songs that she was most proud of writing, and of the nearly 3,000 songs she's written, she narrowed it down to 3. She then spoke about one of her favorite songs that she had ever written, and it was Coat of Many Colors, which was based on a true story about how her mother stitched together a coat for her out of rags, inspired by Joseph in the Bible, and his coat of many colors. In that same interview, she spoke about growing up in Tennessee and how her mother used to sing all the time. She said, Mama used to sing all those old songs brought over from the old world. Mama was a good singer too, and she would just sing a cappella all the time. So many of those songs were sad, some of them just pitiful. Then Dolly did something that none of us were expecting. She started singing, and I'm not talking about a little tune here, folks. She broke out into the emotional, heartfelt folk song, Bury Me Beneath the Willow, which has been a staple in Dolly's life and music for years. But as soon as she started singing, the weight of her words hit her in a way that we didn't see coming. You could tell the pain of losing her mother was still so fresh in her heart, even after all these years. And Stephen Colbert, he was a mess the man could barely keep. Together, his eyes welled up, and everyone was left stunned. As he took off his glasses and wiped his eyes, as the tears just rolled down his cheeks, the tough, funny guy who's always ready with a quip became the most vulnerable person in the room, all because Dolly's song and emotion hit him right in the feels. She had to ask him if he was crying, and then said, I better hush before you cry yourself to death, and we can't finish the show. Colbert then responded by saying, like a lot of Americans, I'm under a lot of stress, right? Now that was pretty beautiful. Now if you're wondering why this moment was so powerful, it all goes back to Dolly's relationship with her mother, Avie Lee Parton, and how deeply it meant to her. It's no secret that Dolly is a mama's girl, through and through. Avie Lee, Dolly's mother, was not just a parent to her, but a mentor, a guide, and the one who shaped Dolly into the strong, warm, and compassionate woman we know today. Dolly has always said her mom was her biggest inspiration, both as a woman of faith and as a mother. who taught her the values of kindness and hard work, and their bond was unbreakable. Dolly's childhood was not easy, growing up in the mountains of Tennessee in a poor family. But her mom made sure that she and her siblings always knew love and hope. Do you know that Avi Lee was the one who nurtured Dolly's love for music and encouraged her to dream big, even when it seemed impossible? She once told People magazine, "I grew up in a very musical family. All my mother's people were very musical. So I was always around people playing instruments and singing, and my mom singing the old songs. So that was just part of my being, and I just knew I loved. And I just continued doing that. It was just a natural thing." So you see, that deep-rooted connection between Dolly and her mother was the foundation for much of her success. So it's no surprise that when that unforgettable October 2220 appearance on The Late Show happened, and we saw Dolly let down her guard in a way that none of us were prepared for, it was clear that that song wasn't just a performance. It was a tribute to her mom, a way for Dolly to channel all that love, grief, and longing into something beautiful. And that's exactly what she did. The thing is, we've seen Dolly sing and entertain millions of times. But this wasn't just another show. This was a personal moment where she wasn't the entertainer, the superstar, or the queen of country music. She was just a daughter missing her mother, and that's what made it so powerful. As she sang, you could hear the crack in her voice that showed how much she still felt the pain of that loss. And when Cole bared, who's usually the one making people laugh and feel light, became visibly emotional, it hit us all. But this isn't the only time Dolly Parton has publicly remembered the loss of someone so dear to her. Because aside from losing her husband and her mother, she also lost someone so dear to her some years back, and it shook her to her core. The loss of her siblings. Dolly has said time and time again that family is everything to her. She grew up in a tiny cabin in Tennessee with 11 brothers and sisters, and despite her fame, she's always kept them close. But over the years, she's had to say goodbye to several of them, and each loss has been completely devastating. On December 6th, 2018, Dolly's brother Floyd Parton passed away at the age of 61. And if you don't know who Floyd was, let's just say he wasn't just her brother. He was her songwriting soulmate. Floyd wasn't out in the spotlight like Dolly, but he was a major force behind the scenes. In country music, he wrote songs, played instruments, and was one of the few people Dolly actually trusted completely. When it came to music, one of his biggest contributions was Rockin' Years, the hit song Dolly recorded with Ricky Van Shelton in 1991. That song was a huge success. But for Dolly, it wasn't just about the charts. It was about singing a song written by her baby brother Dolly, and Floyd were extremely close. It's safe to call him her twin in spirit, even though they weren't actual twins. They just understood each other in a way that only siblings WHU grew up. Dirt poor could. So when Floyd passed away, you already know. It shattered Dolly the Parton family. Kept things pretty private, but Dolly later shared that they honored Floyd with a beautiful memorial service filled with music and love, just the way he would have wanted. Now, if you think losing Floyd was hard, this next loss is even more heartbreaking. On January 21st, 2021, Dolly lost another brother, Randy Parton, to cancer. And this wasn't just any. Brother Randy was a major part of Dolly's career, unlike Floyd, WHO, preferred to stay behind the scenes. Randy was right there in the spotlight with Dolly for so many years. He was a talented singer and musician as well, so he often performed alongside his sister on stage, and even recorded songs of his own. One of the most touching moments was when Randy and Dolly recorded a duet, together called You Are My Christmas, which was released on Dolly's Christmas album in 2020. It ended up being one of Randy's last recordings. Before he passed, Dolly announced his death in an emotional statement saying, "My brother Randy has lost his battle with cancer. The family and I are grieving his loss, but we know he is in a better place than we are. At this time, we are a family of faith, and we believe that he is safe with God, and that he is joined by members of the family that have gone on before, and have welcomed him with joy and open arms. Losing David was just another devastating blow in a long line of losses that have rocked Dolly's world. However, once again, she had to say goodbye to another close family member, her brother David. Although Dolly hasn't shared much about David's passing yet, knowing how deeply she loves her family, you can bet this one hurts just as much as the others. At this point, you have to wonder how she keeps going. Most people would crumble under the weight of so much grief, but Dolly, she keeps pushing forward. She sings, she smiles. She gives to others all while carrying the heartbreak of losing some of the people she loved most. But that's Dolly for you. She turns pain into music, heartbreak into strength and loss, into legacy. Speaking of legacy, Dolly Parton's legacy is completely untouchable in the entertainment industry. Dolly's legacy, let's just put this out there. There is no country music without Dolly Parton. She's written over 3,000 songs, sold over 100 million records, and has more awards than she probably has wigs. And by that we mean a lot. And the best part of it all is the fact that she achieved all this without playing. By the rules back in the 60s and 70s, country music was a boys' club. Women were supposed to stand in the background and sing sweet little love songs. But Dolly, she came in with big hair, bigger talent, and zero interest in staying quiet. She fought to write her own songs, control her own career, and make music her way. And guess what she? One to this day, Jolene remains an all-time classic, and everyone from Beyoncé to Miley Cyrus has covered. It I Will Always Love You remains one of the biggest songs in history, and the reason Dolly is still cashing royalty checks from Whitney Houston's success. And here's the kicker. While other artists struggle to stay relevant, Dolly is still out here, breaking records at almost 80 years. Old, she was inducted into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. She dropped a rock album with legends like Paul McCartney and Stevie Nicks, and she's still touring and recording like she's got something to prove. And she doesn't. Now let's talk about money, because Dolly isn't just a superstar. She's also a business queen. This woman could teach a masterclass on how to get rich and stay rich. First off, she owns her music, unlike a lot of artists. White Shoe sell their song rights for quick cash. Dolly held on to hers, and so every time I Will Always Love You plays anywhere in the world. She gets paid. Then there's Dollywood back in the 80s. When most celebrities were wasting their money on bad investments, Dolly decided to open a theme park in her hometown. People were initially hesitant about the idea of an amusement park named after her. But fast forward to today. Dollywood is one of the biggest tourist attractions in the United States. Millions of people visit every year, and the park keeps expanding, adding resorts, hotels, dinner theaters, you name it. So it's safe to say that this isn't just a theme. Park, it's a money machine. But let's talk about what really makes Dolly special. It's her heart. We've seen rich celebrities hoard their wealth or use charity for publicity. Not Dolly. She gives back without making a big show of it. And she's been doing it for decades. The biggest example is the Imagination Library, back in 1995. Dolly started a program to give free books to kids. Not just in Tennessee, but all over the world, fast forward to today, and over 200 million books have been donated. Then there's her disaster relief work when wildfires tore through Tennessee. Dolly stepped in and gave money to families who lost their homes. And let's not forget the COVID-19 vaccine. While billionaires were busy getting richer, Dolly donated money to help fund research that led to the Moderna vaccine. And here's the best part. She never brags about it. She just does the work and keeps it moving. Have you ever noticed how Dolly is one of the only celebrities who has never been cancelled in today's world, where people are quick to turn on their faves? Dolly remains untouchable. She stays out of drama, never trashes anyone, and somehow manages to bring people together when everything else in the world is falling apart. And let's be real, nobody dislikes Dolly. Republicans love her, Democrats love her, the young, the old, you name it. And it's all because she has one simple rule, and it's to be kind, work hard, and never take yourself too seriously after over 60 years in the business. Dolly Parton is still on top. She's still making music, still running an empire, still giving away millions to people who need it, and she's still proving why her legacy is forever. So let's hear from you. What's your favorite Dolly Parton song? Tell us in the comment section below. Don't forget to click on the next video on your screen. Like this video and subscribe to our channel for more updates.